Well, a very good evening to the Garden of England, to Brands Hatch Indy for what was round 2 is now the rescheduled round 5 of the Virtual Motorsport Online TCUK Championship, powered by VCO, and a big thank you to Pixelate for jumping aboard as always. Well, you haven't got Cameron Roger and Zach Sweeney with you tonight. It's myself, Alex Goldschmidt, and making his TCUK commentary debut, a very good evening, Ewan O'Leary, fresh from his travels from Riyadh. How are you?
Good evening, doing well, and looking forward to some touring car racing here this evening because, as you say, I've never seen this, I've seen it, but I haven't been on this series before. I do love some touring car racing though, and Brands Hatch Indy is a really, really great circuit for that. Really, really short, but it makes up for that within the racing that you get. You can see very simple layout on the right-hand side, but it's a little bit more tricky than that track map may indicate.
Yes, indeed. Brands Hatch, 1.944 kilometres, just a shade over 1.2 miles elevation. Tight technical corners, but a lot of flat-out racing as well. We're going to see that over the course of 3 races this evening, 24 laps in duration. So we are getting towards the halfway part of this VMO TCUK powered by VCO Esports series. And one big thing, folks, is that the option tyre and the prime tyre will still be in use. We have around 25, 26 cars represented on this grid. Of course, R Factor 2 has a lot of the British touring car the sort of DLC on there, as you can see that just in the far background, the big mound of earth just outside of Graham Hill Bend, and then of course the iconic Brabham Straight, named after the late Sir Jack Brabham. So very, very shortly, we're going to be looking through the standings now. Matt Richards, the defending champion, leads on 176 points ahead of RSR's Dan Herlock, with Thomas O'Leary from DMA Racing in third, John Munro from Rocket Sim Sport, and Matt Richards' nearest teammate in 5th position, Callum Cripps. Lewis Redshaw, Dan Kell, who's missed a few rounds so far due to IRL commitments, is 7th in the Calamity Motorsport Ford Focus. Chris Butcher, running as an independent on this season, in 8th, tied on points with Dan Kell, and the second of the third Rocket SimSport Toyota Corollas, Ross McGregor, with Richards & Co. Racing rounding out the top 10 thanks to the 444 of Callum Wilson. Now also you can see that the I denotes an independent entry. Chris Butcher is an initial champion of this series. Richards & Co. Racing, however, have a gargantuan 93-point lead coming into this 5th round of the season after Oulton Park last time out last week. RSR in second, just 2 points ahead of Rocket SimSport, with DMA Racing, Drake Racing, Calamity Motorsport in 6th. Team Butchie, the independent entry run solely by Chris Butcher, who is not here this evening, I might add. Kings Racing in 8th, Team Ballas Esports in 9th, and TR powered by Geeks Energy rounding out the top 10 on 52 points. So that shows just the drivers and the team standings. But as always, with regards to this kind of touring car format, Ewan, we have the added bonus of the soft and the prime, the option tyres around this circuit. And that's going to make a bit of a difference here. But also we know that Brands Hatch does have its own microclimate, doesn't it?
Yeah, and weather can play a big role in it as well, and obviously the tyre rules change quite drastically if the wet tyres are brought out, and then it all gets a bit complicated. So we'll see if we are interrupted by weather ever so slightly. But yeah, these are the drivers who'll be taking part here this evening. A wonderfully formed grid with plenty of different colours, which I'm very glad about, to be honest, and we both are, I'd imagine, to pick them apart. But yeah, safe to say that Matt Richards is currently dominating this championship, reigning champion, looking to become the first driver to win this series on a couple of occasions. Still got a long way to go, of course, but holds a decent advantage for now.
Yeah, 3 wins so far, 2 at Donington National in the opening round of the series, and then a win in race 2 at Snetterton. He's also secured 4 second-place finishes, so he's had 3 wins, 7 podiums. Daniel Herlock, in the meantime, has actually gathered 4 wins, 5 podiums, and has only had 9 starts. So there is always going to be a little bit of a differential. So we got no Chris Butcher tonight, no Scott Sovic from Team Ballast Esports. We've also got no Luke Mitchell from Kings Racing, Kyle Benton in the number 15 from RSR, not going to be with us tonight. Dave Carr-Smith in the number 13 Pixelate Esports car, also not on the grid. So 25 plus cars. I mean, there is not much real estate around this circuit, Ewan. I mean, 1.2 miles. And we know for a fact that the biggest point of contention is going to be the standing starts, because unlike a lot of traditional UK circuits, Brands Hatch is the only one that I know of that has a succinct right-hand down camber. So you've really got to launch the car off correctly, but still not break traction.
Yeah, it's a really odd start-finish straight around here. The way that it sort of rises and falls and cambers around it, it is a little bit awkward to deal with, especially when you're trying to get off the line in a front-wheel drive car as well, which is an issue. Your nose can dive towards the valley, if you like, of the front straight, and so that could be a real problem getting off the line. But thankfully, turn one's not too tight. You can sort of run around there, and everyone should get through there fine. It's going to be turn 2 where we're going to be worrying about them a little bit up in towards Druids. Very tight corner, of course. Quite a flowing corner for a hairpin, but it is very, very tight and pretty narrow on the way in. That's where we could see some incidents, and there are some drivers who really believe that lap 1 is their best opportunity to make a load of moves. Then we could see quite a load of incidents as well through there. But let's see. There's 3 races coming up, of course, all with different situations heading into them, and so that's going to mean hopefully 3 different types of races, I guess, and 3 different situations within them. So let's see how we get on. Let's see how the races get underway. No 2 of them are going to be quite the same.
Always the case here in TCUK, as there we see Sam Dowman in the number 6 Vapor Shield Racing Honda Civic Type R, the previous version, the current version that you will see in the British Touring Car, the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship, as Sam Dowman makes his way out of Clark Curve and onto the Brabham straightaway. There is a yellow out in sector number 3, so we are currently in warm-up, so the drivers will have had qualifying before the first of our 3 races. For those wondering about the format, it is qualifying decides the running order for race 1. The results from race 1 will be for race 2, and then we'll have a reverse grid of some description from, I think if I remember correctly, positions 6 to 12 on the grid, and that will then shake things up for race number 3 tonight. So yeah, there's Daniel Hurlock in the number 2 car, currently second in standings on 139 points. Stephen Haley goes top of the timesheets, 46.838. So still quite a few yellows. We do see quite a few yellows in certain circuits, and as you said, as you alluded to earlier, Ewan, this circuit is very, very prone to having a lot of drama. I mean, I've been to trackside at Brands Hatch when it's either been Indy or it's been the Grand Prix, and Paddock Hill Bend is blind crest apex. You could probably take that at about 4th gear, just over 100 miles an hour. But you've really, really got to nail it right getting into the approach, because if you get it an inch wrong, you could be either to the inside and off and into the barriers, or you could be off into the kitty litter off of Paddock Hill Bend, heading down the Hailwood Hill.
And as I said earlier on, this circuit is full of little parts where you wouldn't really fearful of them after looking at the track map, but after driving around here you do realise that this is a difficult circuit. It's not a long circuit, so the margins between first and last should remain fairly small over the course of 1 lap, but to mean that there are 24 laps in just 1 race. We're going to see over 70 laps of racing by the end of tonight, which is absolutely fantastic. Seems like a lot, but it won't feel like it. These races should fly by. It's a nice mix of technical challenge on this circuit, but also overtaking opportunity as well, as you're seeing here with Daniel Hurlock just in behind one of the drivers just further in front of him at the moment. And this is the chicane towards the end of the lap, bit of a slide through there, and then the run towards the final turn. Maybe this will be an overtaking opportunity at some point throughout the day. Maybe it'll be about getting that run out of the corner towards Paddock Hill Bend, maybe for a move. So it's going to be a very interesting race indeed, especially race 1, because this is the race that contains the most drivers who have chosen the option tyre before this evening's racing.
Yeah, very much the case. So drivers do have the option. They have to decide within a fixed window before the racing gets underway. And as Ewan said, yeah, pretty much I think at least half the field have taken the option tyre in the first race. That will be quite helpful, especially if drivers do have the ballast that is also used as part of this. So the drivers will have, the person with the most amount of ballast will have 75 kilograms, second will have 66, third will have 57, fourth will have 48 kilos. But the check-in is now out for the warm-up session here at Brands Hatch Indy. As I said earlier, this is due to be round 2, but we did have some issues back then as Daniel Hurlock decides to go full infinity sideways through Paddock Hill Bend and manages to stop it on the anchors quite nicely, but then takes to the gravel, and he still gets the top time. There's John Monroe from Rocket Sim Sport in the Toyota Corolla. He's had some fairly decent results. He's actually had a win at Snetterton round 3, which is round 2 of the season. But that concludes the warm-up ahead of the first of 3 24-lap races. And looks like track has evolved quite significantly to showcase the prowess of these cars. Expect the track to evolve over the course of the race evening here at Brands Hatch Indy. But Matt Richards' run of form here, Ewan. I mean, 4 wins, 3 wins, 4 second places, 7 times he's been on the podium in total. He's started every single one of the races. He is clearly the man to beat tonight.
Certainly is, and I think 7 podiums is impressive. But what does it actually mean? Well, it's over 12 starts. That means for more than half of the season, he's been on the podium, and because of all the ballast and the reverse grids that we talk about, that makes it all the more impressive. In the last 5 races as well, that go back to the last 2 Thruxton rounds, he's been on the podium in 4 out of those 5 races. It's quite a remarkable record that he's got, but he is leading the championship by over Daniel Hurlock, who did miss Snetterton entirely, wasn't at any of those 3 races, and so those points that Matt Richards gained there constitute almost all, if not a little bit more than his actual lead that he holds at the moment.
Right, well, let's take you through the starting grid for race 1 of 3 tonight here at round 5. Dan Hurlock and Dan Kell will be on the front row of the grid, followed by Callum Wilson and Thomas O'Leary. Ryan Elliott lines up the inside of row number 3 with Stephen Haley in the DMA Racing 99 alongside. Then it is an all Rocket Simsport row 4 with Monroe 7th and McGregor 8th. Rounding out the top 10 is the current points leader Matt Richards with Thomas Fach in the RSR number 15 Infinity rounding out the top 10. Then the first of the King's Racing cars will be Scott Mitchell. Then you've got Cameron Brewster and Phil Garside rounding out the top 7 rows. Louis Hartley and Ben Willis rounding out the top 8 rows. So that's the top 16 of this grid completed. Callum Cripps and Johannes Leppit rounding out the top 9 rows with Adam Locke and Anthony Hilton completing the top 20, rounded out by Cupra and Vauxhall, with Max Spooner, Phil Morby, Sam Dowman and Lewis Redshaw completing the top 24. Quite a few drivers at the bottom part of it. And then Tobias Blumschein, Scott Morris rounding out the rounding out the 26 strong as the field gets set into their grid positions. It's going to be an interesting one on this race 1 start here, Mr. O'Leary.
It is, and you can see the way that Pulse is just angled at the moment up the hill. That's likely due to the incline, to just go against that, just to nullify that effect a little bit. Talk about it earlier on, the way that it rises and falls and cambers around. It's going to be a very, very important start, and that even goes down to the way that you angle your car on the actual grid formation here.
Yeah, very much the case, as the lights are out and we're underway for race 1 of round 5, and an absolutely brilliant launch there by Hurlock, Dan Kell, who gets ahead of Hurlock going into Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. A bit of grass cutting there, I think, from John Monroe. But Stephen Haley has gotten alongside and pulled slightly in front as one of the Quartermaster Motorsport cars is in the barrier off of Paddock Hill Bend. So there's a yellow out in sector number 1, so someone has exited stage left rather promptly. That is not Max Spooner. That could be his teammate Adam Locke, as Dan Kell leads them down the Cooper Straight into Surtees, then into the right at McLaren. And already Dan Kell and Daniel Hurlock. There's been a massive incident. Oh, that's big. That's big. Ryan Elliott caught up in there. One of the Rocket Simsport cars was also caught in the crossfire. I think there was at least 5 or 6 cars involved. but that was very, 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 very significant. Callum Wilson has had a blinder of a start here, and he's already up to P3.
Yeah, good start there, and especially good start from Dan Kell, who got off to an absolute flyer there. Daniel Hurlock didn't stand a chance there, but Kell easily able to get into the lead, and then behind, all sorts going on further down. I mean, there was a crash through turn 1 that saw one of the cars off the road in a very big way, and then to that chicane before the final turn through Surtees and McLaren, there was an almighty smash between a number of drivers. At least 4 of them I saw off the road by the end of all of that, and thankfully everybody else able to avoid, but it was a messy start, as now Jack London is down the inside of Matt Richards at the moment, in towards turn 1, absolutely locked together over the line. London down the inside, and that's a nice pass. Matt Richards, championship leader, down to 8th place.
Yeah, and Jack London was also 2 wheels on the grass on the inside, coming out of Clark Curve, going onto the Brabham straightaway. So Cameron Brewster has got Phil Garside for company going through into Graham Hill Bend. Is Garside going to send it around the outside? He's kept it pinned, he's kept ahead. So good move there by Garside in the Honda. But yeah, Jack London just really showcasing to Matt Richards that the Focus isn't a slouch. We've got a yellow ounce in sector number 2, which has been briefly retracted as Tobias Vach in the RSR Infinity is in the pit lane, so might have been really, really compromised by that big crash that we saw coming out of Graham Hill Bend, as we're on lap number 4 out of 24. So Richards trying to put the pressure back on to Jack London. Phil Garside has got a head of steam in that Honda Civic as they go up the Harewood Hill into Druids, tight on the apex, run the car out wide down the hill and then sweep it to the right hand side heading into Graham Hill Bend. Great little 3-way scrap starting to showcase itself here, Ewan.
It is, and this is somewhat the problem at Brands Hatch. Sometimes you can find yourself stuck behind a few drivers and just form trains like this on occasion, but Matt Richards certainly close enough to try and make this move on Jack London in the next couple of laps by the looks of things. Further back as well, the likes of Brewster on Morby may be able to happen. It's for 10th place, just a little bit further back, and you can see a couple of looks now to the inside and the outside in towards turn 1, but getting offline is going to be a little bit tricky. We've been hearing reports of maybe a bit of rain earlier on in the session, and that's clearing away, but offline does seem to, or we're hearing that it seems to be a little bit tricky to deal with, and that's going to make overtaking quite difficult as we look at the lap 1 incidents now.
Oh, that was Adam Locke, who was literally, he had the slightest of touch to the left rear, and the Cupra Leon loses the rear wing, so there's no aero efficiency on the back of that car, whereas his teammate Max Spooner currently up in 17th position, so has moved into the top 20. There's Louis Hartley trying to close in on John Munro, who I think might have been the Rocket Simsport car that was involved in that multi-car incident at Graham Hill Bend, which we're going to see here. Oh, it's Ryan Elliott that spins, and just tags Munro, and that is going to be very, very close for the second Rocket Simsport car, which I think was Ross McGregor getting through. And that is just what happens. One car loses the back end, especially when it's rear wheel drive. That just goes to show. We've also seen that Scott Morris from TR powered by Geeks Energy in the Hyundai i30 is a retirement from the race. So Ryan Elliott and Tobias Vach they're a couple of laps down respectively, so they've got to try and see if they can make up a couple of positions by the end of the race. But Louis Hartley now trying to get through on John Munro, so Toyota plays Hyundai 14th and 15th going through into Paddock Hill Bend. Louis Hartley trying to put it to the inside, and Munro, did he get a little bit of snap-on oversteer on the back end of that Corolla? Looked very much the case, but he still keeps it nice and well purchased here for Druids, just neatly lines it up and aims it towards the apex and turns it in on a sixpence. But Hartley goes for the crossover through into Graham Hill Bend. This is going to be very, very close. A little bit of a hip check between the pair. Munro kicks up the dust and threading the eye of the needle in between them. That is more than likely. That's Redshaw from the Drake Racing crew, so he's managed to get split between the pair of them. Nice move there from him to get that job done. Phil Morby has ended up in the pit lane. And is there smoke billowing from the back of that Focus? I think there was.
Maybe. I thought he just locked up for the pit entry line, actually, but I don't think so anymore. I think that is smoke coming out the back of the Ford, unfortunately. That might well be the reason that he is down in pit lane, and probably soon a retirement as well. But what a pass that was from Redshaw, seeing Hartley and Munro side by side off of this corner one lap ago. Instead of waiting behind to see which one prevailed and then following them through, which is what most drivers would have done, he instead got involved himself and decided to make the move on his own. As championship leader, Matt Richards is off the road here, I think, or has at least been involved in an incident, because Jack London's off the road. Those two were following one another, and London has come off worse. Matt Richards is down to 10th place.
Oh, dearie me. So it seems like the BMWs might be getting some temperature on those rear tyres, as they tend to do so. The front wheel drives, yeah, I mean, Jack London did a great job on getting past Matt Richards. We can have a look at a replay now. Now, this is coming out of Graham Hill Bend, down the Cooper Straight. Oh, he just cuts across the front, and that is London off, and, well, Matt Richards gets a little bit of a hip check there as well. I think that, I'm not too sure who that was. Might have been, I'm just sort of like, that might have been Phil Garside, because Garside was actually closing in on them quite a lot. So Garside's now up into 7th position, ahead of Callum Cripps, who's now 8th. Brewster and Richards now round out the top 10. Got Anthony Hilton in the Mallow Motorsports number 75 Vauxhall Astra, trying to battle away with Max Spooner for 15th position. But Dan Kell at the moment, ahead of Herlock, has got a pretty comfortable lead at the moment. You're in 1.8 seconds, and we're on lap number 9 out of 24.
Yeah, it's a nice lead for Dan Kell at the moment. As you mentioned, he's a really strong driver, is Kell, in this series. He's won it in years gone by. Unfortunately, missed the rounds at Thruxton and Donington, though, and that's put him backwards quite a lot. He's only won once in those 6 appearances, though. Been on the podium a couple of times besides that as well, but looking for another race win here. And it looks like he's going to be able to get that, because if I was Daniel Herlock, I would stay exactly where I am for the moment, given the situation that Matt Richards is in, down in 10th place. This is his worst result in quite some time. I would argue his worst result since the last race at Snetterton, which was only round 2 of the championship. We're now in round 5, so there's no need to do anything silly here from Herlock's point of view. Just close that championship margin down ever so slightly. And he can do that with where he is. Same for Thomas O'Leary as well, who will do the same. He's 3rd in the championship, currently 4th in this race.
Yeah, and behind Max Spooner and Anthony Hilton, we've got the likes of Sam Dowman in the number 8 Vapor Shield racing car. He's got Jack London trying to close on in, and then Scott Mitchell-Malm in the 469 Kings Racing Infinity Q50. Car no longer that resides on the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship grid. But a bit of shortcutting there from Anthony Hilton. Gets 2 wheels in the air, and it's nearly 3 wide just behind him going up the hill into Druids. But Hilton trying to put the pressure on Spooner early, and Spooner just seems to be soaking it up like a sponge at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly is, and that can be very difficult to do when there's so many behind you, and you're trying to hang on to this position. If he can do, then he'll look to move forward during race 2, and maybe he can benefit from the reverse grid and have a chance at winning in race 3. That's the beauty of this format, is that you can elevate yourself right towards the front by the end of the night with the results that you can accumulate. But at the moment, Spooner down in 15th place, and we'll need a little bit more than this to benefit from that. As you mentioned earlier on, it's a random draw, so between 6th and 12th place it could be the reverse grid pole. That is drawn at the end of race 2, and we'll find out who is going to be on the pole, just so that people don't know while they're in the race, and then silly things start happening for those battles, whichever position it is for the reverse grid. Randomise it a little bit, make everybody fight for positions right towards the very end of race 2. And right now, even without the prospect of a reverse grid, they're fighting for positions at the end of race 1, or at least in the second half of it, as Brewster tries to make his move on Garside, with Matt Richards also there in 10th place, watching on from behind.
Yeah, there's about a 1.3 second gap between Callum Cripps and Phil Garside, as there is a yellow house in sector number 1, which briefly gets retracted. Matt Richards a little bit wider coming out of the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, and then on the run up the Hailwood Hill through into Druids, as these 3 are interlocked into battle. This is the battle for 8th, 9th and 10th. as it looks like there is one of the Rocket Simsport cars that is just in front of them, that's just getting out of the way. Might be Tobias Blumschein, I think, or John Munro possibly. Well, Munro's currently 14th at the moment, but the rate it will be probably more than likely Blumschein. 10 laps to go. We're on to now lap 15 out of 24. Dan Kell's lead over Herlock now stretches to just under 1.9 seconds. And Cameron, great job by Callum Wilson in third position for the highest placed of the Richards & Co racing trio. Callum Cripps rounds out the top 7 behind O'Leary, McGregor and Haley. Hilton has got a very, very hungry and motivated Jack London from Calamity Motorsport in the Ford Focus right up his exhaust pipes. London goes to the outside, puff of smoke from the back of Hilton as he tries to brake going through into Druids. There's a little bit of a lag spike there, it appears, from Jack London ever so slightly, which puts him into the clutches of Scott Mitchell-Marm just in front of him in the 469 Kings Racing Infinity. Sam Dowman and Ben Willis rounding out the top 20. Tobias Blumschein, I saw, did actually have to take a trip through pit lane. Not too sure if that might have been a server-induced penalty for too many track cuts. But Dan Kell now onto lap 16 has got a big advantage. That's now swelled to the best. Well, it's swelled to about 2.7 seconds now at the moment. Ewan runs at about 2.2 with Wilson in third. And he's starting to try and close in on Herlock at the moment with just under 1.1 seconds separating second from third at this moment.
Yeah, Herlock will have to be careful about that. I said earlier on that he doesn't need to break a leg to try and catch Dan Kell, and that is true, but he can't let his foot off the gas for fear of Callum Wilson closing in and overtaking him for that second place, because while that's happening, Matt Richards is gaining places as well. He's just past Garside for 9th place, and now he's going to try and take his fellow BMW driver Brewster in these final 8 laps, the final third of this race now. Not long remaining at all for Matt Richards to try and make this move. It's not a big gap. He doesn't have to do any closing, but he will need to take a few laps to try and find his way through, because overtakes at this circuit are not just a simple affair.
Yeah. Phil Morby also a DNF as well in his car, the number 14 Team Atagani Ford Focus ST, as Matt Richards again through Clark Curve, having come through McLaren, now tries to get closer and closer, but with the way things are going, it seems that Cameron Brewster has the legs of Matt Richards at the moment. Just behind them is Garside in one of the Rocket Simsport cars, which I would imagine is going to be Tobias Blumschein, who did take that trip. Matt Richards again flirting with the gravel on the left-hand side, coming out of Paddock Hill Bend. Yellow out in Sector 1, but yeah, Callum Wilson is really closing in on Herlock, and that gap is now down to less than a second. It's about 7/10 and closing. And there is the Richards & Co Racing 444, and there is just in front of him the Daniel Herlock Infinity Q50, and this is going to be a really, really crucial battle. Like you said, Herlock doesn't need to break a leg trying to get past Kell, because he's now a considerable margin in front. That is more than likely going to be the best part of 2.5 seconds, as Scott Mitchell-Marm has got past Ben Willis and now is closing in on Hilton for that 16th position. Jack London's up to 15th. The Spooner is trying to close his way, as that's a great move from Scott Mitchell-Marm up the inside, squeezes through, rubs paint, and manages to get the position. So the Infinity Q50 from Kings Racing now up into 15th position. 16th position. Willis gets through on Hilton, going through into Druids, as there is Callum Wilson, high, wide and handsome round the outside, trying to get through on Herlock. Herlock's not giving any quarter here, as they are literally side by side up the hill towards Druids.
Yeah, Wilson doesn't really have a chance in this championship without a remarkable resurgence in the second half, because he's only 10th at the moment, but his teammate is very much involved. Matt Richards is his teammate, and he's leading the championship over Daniel Herlock, and to take any points away from him would be fantastic for Richards. Callum Wilson going to look to help his teammate in whatever he can here over the final 4 laps. Means, you know, not very much racing to go at all in this one now. Less than 5 minutes of this race remain now. And that means not very long for Callum Wilson to try and make his way through. There'll be another running towards turn 1. Almost a replay of the last lap. He looks to the outside but can't make a move. Herlock sends it into the first turn, slides his way through, and on the exit will have to defend from Callum Wilson, who will have the run. He's on the outside at Druids, and if he can hold it there, he'll have the inside for turn 3, but Herlock fends him off again.
Yeah, Wilson's really got the bit between his teeth. We've got 4 laps to go, including this one. So the battle for second and third really heating up as they come down the Cooper Straight out of Graham Hill Bend. Now into Surtees. Pitch it right, turn it in into McLaren, and then you got to really wait and wind up the car, and then as soon as you know that you can apply the power, out through Clark Curve, down the Brabham Straights, and again Herlock trying to close into the wall on the inside line. Wilson's doing exactly the same. He's got the slipstream, he's got the run, he's going to bowl to the outside once again, and that's the 3rd time in 3 successive laps that Callum Wilson has tried to get past Herlock round the outside, but he looks for the old Nigel Mansell dummy. Lock up a brakes from Herlock going into Druids. Will Wilson get the undercut? He doesn't on this particular occasion. But what about the run down to Graham Hill Bend? Wilson again trying left, right. He's trying to force that window of opportunity to wind his way, and Ewan, it's not quite worked out.
Not quite for the moment. Still unable to find his way through as we go back to battles further behind. What's gone on here? Somebody in the wall in a big way through turn 1 after a very big battle. That's Ben Willis making up 2 places as a result, or at least one of them, and having to fight for the second up the hill through Druids. Let's hope there's not even more contact down here. Oh, there is a little bit, but nothing too bad in the end, certainly not compared to whatever happened at turn 1, but Willis flashing his lights and then not quite realising there was somebody else side by side with him on the run out of turn 3. Once again, Daniel Herlock on the defensive here. It's turning into quite a remarkable drive from him now. Wilson, O'Leary and McGregor all joining in. It's a 4-car battle at the end with a lap and a half to go. Wilson's on the outside again, can't quite do it. Herlock with just one more time around, just 2 kilometres to go to hold on to what would be one of the hardest fought second places he'll have had for quite some time.
Yeah, that was Jack London, who actually had a tangle with Max Spooner, and Max Spooner ended up in the wall, as now Ross McGregor gets past O'Leary for 4th position, but they're side by side heading into Paddock Hill Bend as we're on the 24th and final lap of this race. And McGregor goes a little bit wide. O'Leary looking for the undercut, getting the inside line into Druids. Is he going to force it up the inside? It's nip and tuck between the pair. Little bit of paint rubbing left front to right rear, but McGregor still keeps his nerve and holds station in 4th position. And again, Herlock has just been flirting with the grass and the dust on the outside of Graham Hill Bend on the exit. Callum Wilson has tried everything in his power to get past the LRSR Infinity Q50, but it's going to be the checkered flag. Dan Kell takes the win here in race 1. It's going to be a run to the line. Herlock will take 2nd. Wilson will take 3rd, but it was next to nothing in it. It was a 1/10 of a second. McGregor, O'Leary ran out the top 5. Callum Cripps comes home in 6th position. Cam Brewster 7th. Steve Haley, Matt Richards and Phil Garside will round out the top 10. Lewis Redshaw will be in 11th. John Munro, despite that incident earlier on at Graham Hill Bend, he recovers to finish in 12th as Jack London picks up the final points paying position in 15th, just ahead of Ben Willis. Scott Mitchell-Marm in 14th position, with Hartley rounding out the top 13. There's Tobias Blumschein in the number 33. Oh, there's another car on fire there as well. Didn't really catch who that was, but Max Spooner finishes in 19th position, what could have been a points finish. Let's not forget that Adam Locke, out of the drivers from Quartermass Motorsports who did the switch from the Focus ST, as soon as the Cupra Leon ended up, oh, that's one of the TR Geeks Energy cars, the Hyundai on fire. But that concludes race 1 out of 3 for round 5 here at Brands Hatch. Dan Kell winning by a comfortable 7 seconds after the opening race. Daniel Herlock, Callum Wilson, Ross McGregor, Thomas O'Leary, Callum Cripps, Cameron Brewster, Stephen Haley, Matt Richards and Phil Garside round out the top 10. That just goes to show how cutthroat it is here in the VMO TCUK 2023 season, powered by VCO. So there is your top 10 after 24 laps. I mean, you and that battle for second position right up until the checkered was absolutely mouth-watering.
It was fantastic, and a great drive from Daniel Hurlock to hold on to that for so long. Badly needed those points, of course, that he was able to get in the end. Another 17 added to his tally, at least, depending on all the other ones that may be added or not at the end of the race. Certainly a lot more than Matt Richards was able to get for only 9th in that. That will be a 10-point gain for Hurlock, roughly, and that reduces that margin to 27 points provisionally in the championship, but still another couple of races to go, and he'll have to hold on to that as well, because the pace drop-off from him was a little bit worrying. I know there was a battle going on, and that's what allowed so many drivers to get involved, but it was a little bit concerning how much he was being caught there. And if that happens again in race 2, then he could well lose quite a few points from it.
Yeah, indeed. Well, race 1 is in the books here. We're going to go to a brief break. Stay tuned as we gear up and get ready for race 2 here at Brands Hatch Indy. Race 1, we're getting set and ready for race number 2. Dan Kell will be on the full amount of ballast here for this particular race of 75 kilos. It's Alex Goldschmidt and Ewan O'Leary bringing you all the play-by-play. And here is the starting grid for race 2 here at round 5. Dan Kell and Daniel Hurlock will line up on the front row with Callum Wilson and Ross McGregor on row number 2. Row 3 is going to be Thomas O'Leary and Callum Cripps, with Cameron Brewster and Stephen Haley completing the top 8, thereby completing the top 4 rows. Completing the top 10 is going to be Matt Richards and Phil Garside, and more importantly, those two drivers will have limited ballast on them. 15 kilos for Richards, 9 for Garside. Then it's going to be Lewis Redshaw and John Munro rounding out the top 12. Louis Hartley and Scott Mitchell-Mole with Jack Ludden and Ben Willis rounding out the top 16. Anthony Hilton and Sam Dowman will comprise row 9, and it's an all Cupra row 10 completing the top 20, with Max Spooner starting ahead of teammate from Quartermaster Motorsport Adam Locke. Ryan Elliott, Tobias Blumschein, Thomas Fach, Johannes Leppitz complete the top 24 drivers. Rounding out the grid, it's going to be Phil Morby and Scott Morris, who both retired at the end, well, towards the beginning of race number 1, as Dan Kell puts his Ford Focus, pointing it towards the outside of Paddock Hill Bend. Ewan, the tension builds once more.
It does. Dan Kell with a chance to convert this to a race win as well, but watch out for Matt Richards in 9th place. Limited ballast on board. He will be formidable even from 9th place.
And there we have, picture in picture, Scott Morris on the 26th and final position of our grid for another 24 laps of this 1.2, just shy of 2 kilometre circuit here at Brands Hatch Indy. The halfway points of round 5 of the VMO TCUK Championship powered by VCO. The lights get going. Dan Hurlock has a very slow start, but in the meantime, Ross McGregor is like a rat up a proverbial drain pipe. He shot all the way from 4th up to 2nd, has literally steamrolled past both Hurlock and also Wilson as the field make their way up to Druids for the first time. O'Leary has got Cripps to his outside, and Richards, who's already made up 2 positions. As we see the picture in picture, Scott Morris right behind, looks to be Phil Morby in the Team Atagani number 14 Ford Focus. Again, very, very accordion-like going through out of Graham Hill Bend down the Cooper Straight. But Dan Kell got an absolute launch despite having significant amount of ballast on that Ford Focus, and he's already 1.2 seconds up the road by the end of the opening lap.
That's exactly how he took... Oh, Scott Morris has gone over and over again at the final turn. Well, that was unexpected. It's that section of the end of the course once again that's provided the problems. I'm sure we'll get another look at that in a few moments' time, but what a dramatic start back there. It's another great launch off the line from Dan Kell, though. That's exactly how he took the lead from Daniel Hurlock in the opening race, let's not forget. Well, it's going to be so difficult for everybody to hold off Matt Richards here, who's already up to 6th place. Here is what happened to Scott Morris further behind. He's slaloming him in and out, different drivers, and after a head-on collision with one of the cars that was stopped on the circuit for the final turn, Morris goes over 3 times, I think, and really lands on his wheels again. But that was another big crash at the end of the lap. We've seen so much drama already here tonight.
Yeah, that was Adam Locke that I think was the car that was just directly in front of him, one of the Cupra Leons from Quartermaster Motorsports, as Ross McGregor is fending off Daniel Hurlock as if his life depended on it. Tom O'Leary's up the inside of Callum Wilson, and Matt Richards could thread the eye of the needle going through into Druids. We've got another yellow out in sector number 3 as McGregor and Hurlock battle away over P2. Corolla versus Q50. That Q50 of Hurlock looks to be a little bit unsettled at times. I mean, the back end was skipping from left to right ever so slightly coming out of Graham Hill Bend, but Ross McGregor's just pointing the Rocket Simsport Toyota Corolla wherever he needs it, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, and that is, well, ideal for this stage. Still very early on in this race now, and Dan Kell still leads. What a move this is, though. Daniel Hurlock down the inside towards turn 1. and that was a strong move. He holds it tight on the exit of turn 1 as well, just to make sure that Ross McGregor couldn't get the run on him on the run up towards Druids, and so Hurlock sent it into turn 2, and he is through into second place as Matt Richards tries to make up another place, and Thomas O'Leary does indeed now in towards turn 3, and already he's alarmingly close to this race lead. He's the overwhelming favourite for this race with limited ballast on board, and you know, a lot of speed anyway, although he's barrelled straight into the side of McGregor there and has to just lift off slightly to make sure that he doesn't pass as a result of that contact.
Yeah, also got a touch from Thomas O'Leary as he literally harpooned his way into the side of Ross McGregor, thought better of it, and that just goes to show how quickly things can change, because not too far behind Thomas O'Leary is the pair of teammates from Matt Richards. Callum Wilson 6th, Callum Cripps in 7th, Lewis Redshaw in the Drake Racing number 24 BMW doing a very good job, but he's being hunted down by John Munro. Stephen Haley's in 10th, Cam Brewster. Scott Mitchell-Marm is battling away with Phil Garside for 12th position. Hilton, London and Spooner ran at the top 16, and I've already seen that Sam Dowman in the Honda Civic, the Vapor Shield number 8, is out of this race early doors. But yeah, I think Morris was very, very lucky. He's managed to get that TR powered by Geeks Energy Hyundai i30 back on the road, and it is still going despite those multiple rolls. I think it at least rolled 2 or 3 times there, coming through out of McLaren and going into Clark Curve. So he was very, very lucky, and all 4 well, the wagon landed on all 4 wheels. A little bit further back, Jack London gets his way by using the outside line coming out of Druids and heading down into the inside into Graham Hill Bend, kicks up the dust whilst exiting the corner. So this is a good battle here for 14th.
It is a good fight, and as I said earlier on, Jack London needs more places here to maybe benefit from the reverse grid. As we mentioned earlier, it's between 6th and 12th to the pole sitter for the final race. Obviously, the higher you get within that order, the chances of you benefiting from the reverse grid get higher as you go along, and there's a fantastic battle for 4th place on backwards, which is really making this exciting at the moment as well. Down the inside for Thomas O'Leary on McGregor at the moment, in towards turn 2. They're going to remain locked together as Callum Wilson will gain his result, so will Cripps. It's side by side through 3 as well. The 2 of them lean on each other again in towards the fast-paced chicane now. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens here now. We've seen so many incidents here throughout the race so far, and somehow they make it out the other side all right. Still side by side, approaching an entire lap now, battling for this 4th place, but eventually Thomas O'Leary makes his way through. It took him almost the entire way round the lap, but he does now have 4th place.
Callum Wilson cheekily sticks his nose to the outside of the left of the Toyota Corolla from Rocket Simsport of Ross McGregor in the battle for 5th position as the field makes its way. Look at the train here. It's the Ross McGregor train. At the back end of that is Steve Haley. John Munro is 3 places behind his Rocket Simsport teammate, but Matt Richards is really starting to close on in. We knew that he was going to be at the sharp end of the field, but now Hurlock is closing in to Dan Kell. The gap between 1st and 2nd is less than 9/10 of a second. Matt Richards in the meantime is also closing in, but Callum Wilson has got Callum Cripps in tow, and then Lewis Redshaw. Matt Richards fastest lap of the race, that's a 46.261. He's got the gap down to Hurlock to just under 1.1 seconds. Hurlock in the meantime is waiting to strike on Dan Kell. Yellow out in sector 1 as they go up the hill again into Druids. This is just a personification of when it's a very closely packed race. It's like a strategic game of touring car chess here, Ewan. You've got to really pick your moments.
You have to pick your moments, but on other occasions, some occasions it's like chess, on other occasions it's just all-out brawls, really, which is not very chess-like, as we see how Sam Dowden ended his race. Oh dear, very nearly got smashed there, thankfully avoided, but yeah, this is the fight now for 5th place as O'Leary has made his way through. McGregor seems to be struggling here, and he's going to get freight trained. I think he'll be looking to finish inside the top 10, and it will be a good drive for him if he can do that over the course of the last 15 laps as the 3 leaders get together now. By the way, Dan Kell can't hold this lead with the weight that he's got on, and so it's been caught by Daniel Hurlock, and just as quickly as Hurlock has joined him, Matt Richards is there as well. For anybody to beat Matt Richards here, it's going to be a very, very tall order, as the top two from the previous race now struggle with their weight, and Richards, with very limited weight, is looking to take the lead from them.
Yeah, very much the case. We're not even halfway through this second 24-lap race here for round 5 of the VMO TCUK Championship powered by VCO. Matt Richards is looking towards the outside of Herlock, who's looking up the inside of Kell as they all come through. It was nearly 3 wide coming out of the exit of Paddock Hill Bend up towards Druid. Herlock sends it up the inside. Oh, and Richards gets caught up in the crossfire. The leader's still side by side. Kell's going to get the inside run into Graham Hill Bend and stays ahead of Herlock for the moment, but this could open the door for Matt Richards. Oh, onto the grass goes Dan Herlock. And this means that Matt Richards might have the outside line. No, he doesn't. Herlock squeezes him, as if to say, no, you don't, but the cutback was absolutely mighty. Herlock into the side of Kell. Richards holding station, waiting for something else to happen as they come out to complete lap number 11. Incredible fight here at the sharp end of the field.
Great racing between the three of them. Matt Richards trying to get involved, but also trying not to get himself into trouble. And somehow they end that lap the same position as they started it. Wow, what a save that was from Matt Richards as they made side-to-side contact. Herlock and Richards. In the end, the driver of the BMW hanging on to that one by just pure car control in the end. Dan Kell still holds on to the lead here, but he's still got half this race remaining to hang on to the win.
Yeah, and again, the dust being kicked up on the exit curb of Graham Hill Bend going onto the Cooper Straight. What this is also allowing is that Thomas O'Leary is going to be able to catch these drivers. He's only a couple of seconds behind them. With the pace that they're showing, Herlock again into the slipstream of Dan Kell coming across the start-finish line as we go on to lap number 13 out of 24. So we're halfway done, halfway to go. Herlock again trying to get through, and Richards again was sideways through Paddock Hill Bend. Lewis Redshaw in the meantime trying to go around the outside of John Monroe to keep that 8th position, and he's kept it planted. But Monroe, is he going to look up the inside through into Druids? Richards looking out on the outside of Herlock going through Graham Hill Bend. Any which way you look, there are going to be battles up and down the order at the sharp end of the field and the Constantina train right here.
This is from McGregor on backwards, and McGregor still holding on to that place for the moment, which is fantastic driving from him, but the pressure is only increasing. Wide from Renshaw through the final turn there, and Monroe looks to the inside, couldn't quite get there to the inside, and we'll have to have another look towards turn 1, I think. We'll go to the outside, then switch to the inside, not quite towards turn 1 on that occasion, so he stays behind. And then a bit further back is Haley, who's in that train as well. It's from 5th place all the way down to 14th, arguably, with Jack London getting involved here as well. A huge battle it is, and fantastic to watch. 10 drivers involved in this fight for a top 5 place.
Top 14 covered by 9 seconds here at Brands Hatch. After 13 laps of racing, we're about to conclude lap 14 and then have 10 to go as we ride on board with Daniel Herlock. Oh, that was one of the back markers. That might have been more than likely Morris, I believe, as Herlock looks again towards the outside. 10 laps to go. Richards got a run of momentum through Paddock Hill Bend. He nearly caught Daniel Herlock unawares and looks towards the outside of him going through into Druids. The pair are wheel to wheel, side by side, and Herlock gets a little bit of a wiggle coming out of Druids, and then Richards looks for the inside, gets through. It's going to be close coming out of Graham Hill Bend, but down the Cooper Straight is Matt Richards going to have the purchase and the power to get through? Yes, he does. Up to second goes the championship leader.
Now this task of him making this race win, or getting this race win, might have just been made a little bit easier. He was struggling before when there were 2 in front of him because Kell and Herlock kept going side by side, kept getting involved in their own battle. They found it easy to fend Richards off, but now Kell on his own is going to find this very difficult. Richards down the inside in towards turn 1. That's the race lead for the championship leader, and he should be able to hold on to that from now as Herlock also gets the run inside in towards turn 2, and now finally Daniel Herlock makes his way through as well. So Herlock, after all that trying, has returned to second place. He's ahead of Kell, but he's surely not going to be able to keep up with Richards now after that pass.
No, and here comes Thomas O'Leary from DMA Racing, making it a 4-horse race at the moment. Lap 16 out of 24 about to be completed, so there'll be 8 to go once we cross the start-finish line here on the iconic Brabham Straights, as Matt Richards now starting to stretch the legs on the BMW 330e M Sport. Callum Cripps, though, however, is trying to look to get past Ross McGregor for 5th position. Richards & Co. Racing number 69 BMW looking to get into the top 5. Callum Cripps' best result so far was actually 2nd place at Oulton Park round race 1 of round 4 last time out. McGregor looks to have Callum Cripps' number for the meantime as they go down the hill from Druids into Graham Hill Bend. Callum Cripps very, very handy behind the wheel, especially on a simulator such as R-Factor 2 that we're doing this competition on, as Thomas O'Leary has just had Dan Kell up his inside. So Dan Kell through into 2nd position, 3rd position. So these drivers are battling it out for the final step on the virtual rostrum here at race 2.
He briefly got through there, but Kell back through again now into 3rd place, trying to hold on to a podium place, but goes wide through turn 1. There he's going to find this pretty easy down the inside, and so Dan Kell down to 4th place, but he'll be in somewhere in the mid part of the top 10, you would imagine, after the reverse grid, and he might well be able to make up some of those places back again and some more points, but he's still not giving up with this podium just yet. Back down the inside at turn 3, and Thomas O'Leary is making a little bit harder work of this maybe than it requires. He's clearly got more speed, he's got much less weight on board. Kell is clearly struggling, but O'Leary still hasn't found his way definitively through just yet.
Matt Richards now has expanded his lead to the best part of just close to a second, and this battle between Kell and Herlock is, well, between Kell and O'Leary is 2.6 seconds behind Daniel Herlock, who still holds on to 2nd. Dan Kell squeezes Thomas O'Leary on the run up the hill in towards Druids. O'Leary finds the space through at the right-hand hairpin and gets back through for Dan Kell. I mean, these two are swapping 3rd place more time than I've probably had hot Sunday roast dinners all the way through 2023. Again, another amazing battle.
Great fight between the two of them, and a big squeeze from Kell there. He tried to hold off O'Leary. It may have been not a great idea, though, for Kell to do that, because it might mean that this battle closes up. Oh, that's a sight for Callum Wilson. And all of a sudden, he goes in front of the field. He's hit by one of the cars and now goes around entirely. He'll drop outside the top 15 as well. It might well be no points at all from this race as chaos ensues behind. Redshaw and Munro come out the other side by side. It's Redshaw who gets up to 7th place as it's side by side once again for 5th. Finally, McGregor displaced as Callum Cripps gets up into the top 5.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate for Callum Wilson coming through out of McLaren into Clark Curve. Just lost the back end, and he actually got T-boned by Jack London, who still is holding on to 11th position. Scott Mitchell-Mom from Kings Racing in the 469 Infiniti Q50 now rounds out the top 10 and is about 6-7 tenths ahead of the Ford Focus. But Callum Cripps now starting to stretch the legs on the BMW 330e M Sport for Richards & Co. Racing. And that gap between him and Ross McGregor has expanded to the best part of 6 to 7 tenths of a second. So Callum Cripps now has limited time to try and close in on our 4th place driver at the moment, Dan Kell, who has also been a previous champion. The inaugural champion was Chris Butcher in season 1 a couple of years ago, and then it was Dan Kell, and then Matt Richards took the title last season, looking to become the first successive TCUK champion, as Callum Cripps hard on the brakes into the right-hander here at Clark Curve. And still that gap is not dwindling, but we've got 3 more laps to go. Matt Richards has surged away into the distance. He's 3.3 seconds ahead of Daniel Herlock, as Ryan Elliott now looking to get past Phil Garside. This is the battle for P12. Tobias Blumschein, who started from right at the back of the grid, now up to 14th with Cameron Brewster. But great move there by Ryan Elliott to send it up the inside into the approach into Paddock Hill Bend and get through on Phil Garside, with Tobias Blumschein and Callum Brewster not too far behind either. Ben Willis trying to battle away with Louis Hartley for 20th position. Ben Willis, a previous Independent Series champion of the TCUK Championship, looking to try and get the inside run, as that was more than likely Phil Morby in the background there I just spotted. It's not been an easy one for the team Atagani number 14 Ford Focus.
No, certainly hasn't. Even in these slightly conditions, actually, the sun seems to have poked through a little bit more, seems to be a little bit brighter. Rain seemingly a long way away here for race 2, but hasn't made it any less tricky for some of the drivers around. A good pass from Elliott there to get up into 12th place, at least giving himself the smallest chance of being involved in the reverse grid there. Because we just don't know yet. It's the fight from 6th place on backwards. McGregor at the moment is guaranteeing himself to be involved in that somewhere. But the battle is basically from there down to 12. So it's very close there indeed, and we just don't know what way that is going to go. But we know that Matt Richards is going to be towards the back of that reverse grid structure, because he is on his way to a race win, sliding his way through turn 1 almost for show. He got through into this lead a very long time ago, and he's cementing his place in the championship lead. He's grabbing another few points for Daniel Hurlock here. 2nd place, not quite recovering all of those points he lost throughout race 1. It's still a gain for Hurlock over the course of the day so far, but at least he is on his way to a race win.
His 4th of the 2023 VMO TCUK Championship, powered by VCO. Matt Richards out of the final corner. It's a win for the defending champion, his 4th of this season, 10th in race 1, and picks up the victory here in race 2 by a comfortable margin, which is going to be 4 seconds ahead of Daniel Hurlock, who picks up his 2nd successive 2nd place of the week of the evening, ahead of Thomas O'Leary from DMA Racing, who picks up P3. Dan Kell round out the top 4 positions ahead of Callum Cripps, and it's two of the Rocket Sim Sport cars, Ross McGregor and John Munro, that round out the top 7. Great showing by Lewis Redshaw from Drake Racing in 8th. Scott Mitchell-Marm holding the banner high for Kings Racing in 9th, ahead of Jack London from Calamity Racing, rounding out the top 10 after that one. There is Phil Morby, last but by certainly no means least. It has been a very, very difficult one. He's had 4 DNFs so far in this championship, and Matt Richards picks up his 4th win of the season so far by 4 seconds ahead of Daniel Hurlock, with Thomas O'Leary in 3rd, Dan Kell, Callum Cripps, Ross McGregor, John Munro, Lewis Redshaw, Scott Mitchell-Marm and Jack London rounding out the top 10 position. Stephen Haley in 11th, ahead of Ryan Elliott, who had a good resurgence in that race to finish 12th, ahead of Cam Brewster. Tobias Blumshine started from the back end of the grid, finished in 14th. It was going so well for Callum Wilson before a big old spin through Clark Curve meant calamity was assured in that corner, and he ended up 15th, ahead of Thomas Fach, who is an RSR substitute tonight. Phil Garside 17th, ahead of Anthony Hilton. Max Spooner and Ben Willis round out the top 20. Louis Hartley, Phil Morby, Adam Locke and Johannes Leppitt ran out the 24 that finished the race. Scott Morris did eventually fit DNF after that big 3 barrel rolls at the exit of McLaren earlier on, and Sam Dowman's race also ended early in the number 8 Vapor Shield Racing Honda Civic Type R. Now it's time to find out who will be our reverse grid pole position sitter for race 3, and funnily enough, it is going to be the driver that finished that race in 12th position, which is going to be Ryan Elliott.
And that means that it's the biggest possible reverse grid we could have had. Puts Daniel Hurlock and Matt Richards on row 6 the grid as well, which is not ideal for them at all, I would argue. So the worst possible outcome for them, the best possible outcome for us, though, I would argue. That's a fantastic reverse grid for us, because it means there's going to be a lot of action in these next 24 laps. Very much looking forward to seeing how race 3 pans out.
Indeed. Well, folks, there's going to be a little bit of a break before we get ready to go racing for the 3rd and final time here for round 5 of the VMO TCUK Championship, powered by VCO here at Brands Hatch. Indy, join myself, Alex Goldschmidt and Ewan O'Leary. After a few minutes, we'll see you very soon. Well, it's time for the third and final race of round 5 of the VMO TCUK Championship powered by VCO, and it's 24 laps around this 2 kilometre circuit. You and O'Leary, we've had 2 different winners from 2 different races tonight. Do you think we can go 3 for 3 possibly? But here is your starting grid for race number 3. Ryan Elliott and Stephen Haley on the front row. Jack London and Scott Mitchell-Marm will be on row number 2. Lewis Redshaw, John Monroe, Ross McGregor and Callum Cripps round out the top 8 positions. The top 10 will be completed by Dan Kell and Thomas O'Leary, with Daniel Hurlock and Matt Richards rounding out the top 6 rows. Cameron Brewster and Tobias Blumschein will be on row 7, followed by Callum Wilson, who completes the top 15, and Tomasz Wach, who rounds out the top 16 positions on the grid. Phil Garside and Anthony Hilton will start on row number 9, with Max Spooner and Ben Willis completing the top 20. Louis Hartley, Phil Morby and Adam Locke and Johannes Leppich will complete 24 of the 26 drivers. And then we have a total of 13 rows of competitors with Scott Morris and Sam Dowman. Now that I've got you back with me, Ewan, do you think we're going to make it 3 for 3 tonight?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think there's a good chance with the amount of drivers who have been sent backwards with the reverse grid and amount of drivers who have been sent forwards as well. I think the chances are quite good that we are going to see another different race winner here, just because it's going to take so much work to get through the field. But then again, Matt Richards had quite a lot of work to do in the last race, and he was able to do it. So yeah, the chances are pretty good.
So we're getting ready for the final 24 laps of this round 5 of the championship. The lights go out. Good start by Stephen Haley, but not enough for him to pull alongside. Ryan Elliott, who leads the field. It's 3 wide in the battle for 3rd position. London, Redshaw and Mitchell Marm, 3 wide going through into Knockhill Bend. Looks like London might have gotten through nicely. Ross McGregor has got through on the Infinity Q50 with Scott Mitchell Marm, who runs wide going through into the approach into Druids. He's got one of the Rocket Simsport cars up his inside as they go down the hill into Graham Hill Bend, down the Cooper Straight. And Ryan Elliott starting to try and pull away from Stephen Haley. That Honda Civic Type R looks rather settled.
Certainly does. That's exactly what you want early on here. Just get into this race, and especially if you're at the front, get away from those behind as well. You know they'll be fighting a lot of it in the midfield, and so if you can get to the front, get clear and get single file, get some speed, and you will be able to get away from the rest a little bit easier than you will be able to a little bit later on when everyone is pushing just as hard. Lewis Redshaw now is looking to join them with a move down the inside of Jack London. That was physical between the two of them. They make contact through turn 2, a little bit more on the exit as well, and London will be able to hold on through turn 3.
That's going to allow John Munro, Dan Kell, Ross McGregor, Scott Mitchell Marm, Dan Hurlock. It's side by side between Richards and O'Leary. Richards has got through for 10th, going down the Cooper Straight, but there has been a yellow in sector 2. Lewis Redshaw again trying to look up the inside, and he's just lost a lot of momentum coming out of Clark Curve. That's going to allow John Munro to go towards the outside of him down the Brabham Straight, and looks like Munro has made the move. No, he hasn't. Redshaw still keeps it pinned to the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. The two are door panel to door panel, nigh on, and a little bit of a squeeze on Munro courtesy of Redshaw, who put 2 wheels on the grass on the outside. And there was, it looks like there was a big old moment heading into the final sector. So that would have been down the Cooper Straight, heading into Surtees and McLaren. But still, Ryan Elliott has now pulled away from Stephen Haley. That gap has got to around about a second, as we see 2 of the Richards & Co cars, one of which will be, I think more than likely it's going to be Callum Cripps. Scott Mitchell Marm is battling away. That is with Daniel Hurlock, the second of the RSR Infinity Q50s. Hurlock to the outside, loses the back end, and he's gone through the gravel. Big time. Fishtailing all over the place, and Tom O'Leary is there to pick up the pieces, or is he? No, he's not.
Well, he's down the inside a little bit in towards turn 2. We'll see how that one prevails a little bit later on. But this was further back. Oh dear. This is a big crash for Thomas Vack earlier, and gets smashed as well on the back straight a couple of times as well. Few races now with a few big crashes at the start of them. This time we didn't even wait until the final chicane at the end of the lap, and it was just on the straight instead. Unfortunately, a little bit messy further down in all 3 races. But with so many cars and so little space, it's somewhat to be expected.
Scott Morris was unfortunately caught up in the crossfire. So was Phil Morby, Max Spooner. Tobias Fach actually got a little bit of a touch from Callum Wilson going down into there. Oh, Scott Mitchell Marm gets it all wrong through Druids. That was not what he wanted. We've got one of the cars off to the right hand side. That's Cameron Brewster. He's off at the exit of Druids. So more dramas up and down the order that you can shake a stick at. Thomas O'Leary battling away with Matt Richards. This is for 10th position on the road. Callum Cripps is there. So is Callum Wilson. And that's a nice move by Matt Richards up the inside of Thomas O'Leary, going through out of Clark Curve. But the Honda from DMA Racing straight on the counter offensive. Ryan Elliott has pulled away. His gap over Stephen Haley is now about 1.9 seconds. As we complete lap number 5, on to lap 6 we go.
So Richards just following Hurlock through at this stage, and that's all he really needs to do with the championship situation the way that it is. Will be, of course, halfway at the end of this round, and Hurlock would gain a few of those points back, but Richards is keeping him in check through race 3 at least, and just following him. Then 9th and 10th after starting at 11th and 12th in this race, but still a long way to go and a lot of positions for them to make up as well. But at the moment, they're a long way from Elliott, who leads this one, having started near the front. As I said earlier, needs to get single file and get the speed that he has down on the road, and that's exactly what's happened so far, allowing that leader to get quite a long way ahead of the rest who are still chasing him.
Yes, indeed. Callum Wilson still keeping in close proximity to his Richards & Co teammate, who was very close in proximity to the inside of Thomas O'Leary, going through into Druids on that particular occasion. That's the battle for 11th position. And there is there's the Rocket Simsport meet inside a Calamity Motorsport sandwich, because you've got Jack London ahead of John Munro. That's 4th, 5th, and just behind them is Dan Kell, our race 1 winner from tonight, in 6th position. So a 3-way scrap over 4th position. Lewis Redshaw from Drake Racing has had an absolutely brilliant evening so far. He's currently running now P3 as we ride on board. It's 2 Infinities battling each other. You've got Scott Mitchell-Marm versus Daniel Hurlock, who's trying to pull away into the distance, but he's getting a bit sparks flying from the bottom of the diffuser on the rear of that Infinity Q50, as Munro now trying to put the pressure on Jack London. And you and I both know how incredibly decisive John Munro can be when he's got the situation in his favour, so to speak, especially with the slipstream with Focus versus Corolla.
It's in his hands at the moment, although he's in a bit of a sandwich with Jack London and Dan Kell either side of him. Kell's going to be one to watch throughout this race as well. Kind of dismissed him a little bit after the end of the second race, but he's up there now at the start of race 3 as well, as Callum Wilson makes his way down the inside. That should be complete. That was contacted towards turn 1. John Munro looking for his way through on London, and that should be complete now, with London swinging wide, possibly to let his teammate through here, Dan Kell, and that's exactly what's happened. He realises that Dan Kell's got a better chance of getting a better result in this race, and so the two Fords won't fight each other.
Yeah, and now John Munro has probably got the best part of about 16 laps to try and close in on Lewis Redshaw with the number 24 Drake Racing BMW 330. In the meantime, Matt Richards and Callum Wilson are trying to close in on King's Racing Scott Mitchell-Marm in the 469 Infinity out of Clark Curve. Matt Richards and Callum Wilson literally slipstreaming. It's like shake and bake. It's like Cal Norton Jr. and Ricky Bobby down the Brabham straightaway, as Mitchell-Marm just nearly gets unsettled once again. A little bit further behind them, Callum Cripps is trying to get past through on Thomas O'Leary, as Matt Richards now is going to get through on Callum Wilson is through on Matt Richards, as Thomas O'Leary's on the grass. O'Leary's on the grass. There's been contact between him and Callum Cripps, and up to the top of the hill off of Graham Hill Bend goes Thomas O'Leary, and he plummets down the order.
And for one of them, there was a really big save out of turn 1 as well. Couldn't really catch a glimpse of who it was, but there was big moments at turn 1, an even bigger one at turn 3 for the Honda, unfortunately. So that's that one settled, but Richards not quite doing as well in this race as maybe expected. Hurlock is now in 8th place, with Richards outside the top 10 again as a result of his teammate. That is a bit of a surprise to see for those further back, but leaders are not fighting whatsoever with one another. The action is all back here as Mitchell-Marm tries to hold on to these places, and is going to struggle to do so, you would argue. You'd think that Wilson and Richards should be able to find their way through relatively soon.
Yeah, we've got 2 retirements. Well, looks like we might have another retirement. Sam Dowman in the Vapor Shield Racing Honda Civic looks to be out for the 2nd time this evening. Anthony Hilton, and well, no surprise that Thomas Vach was after that big hit on the opening couple of laps, the number 16 RSR Infinity Q50 literally retiring on the spot after that massive hit. Scott Mitchell-Marm airborne on 2 wheels up on the right hand side as he's battling away with Callum Wilson. Matt Richards looks to the outside through into Druids as this battle for 9th, 10th and 11th continues. There's Callum Cripps. So they do say that there are always strength in numbers, especially when it's Richards and Co Racing involved, but Callum Wilson is leading the 3-car BMW train behind the Infinity Q50, the 469 of Scott Mitchell-Marm, as again they head into Clark Curve. Little puff of smoke from the right rear of the 469 Infinity, but Callum Wilson looks to get the better run coming out of Clark Curve. He's right on the back bumper of Scott Mitchell-Marm, and he's looking towards the outside, going down the Brabham straightaway. Will the BMW have the legs on the Infinity? The answer is no.
This time, but Wilson gets a late apex through turn 1. That should leave him with the run up towards Druids. It's not quite going to, though. He looks up the inside, can't quite do it on turn 2. allows Richards and Cripps to close in even further, but surely Mitchell Marm's days are numbered in terms of holding on to this 9th place, indeed, and holding on to a top 10 for the moment. It's doing well for now, but there's still a long way to go in this one, and Wilson's looking very threatening. Outside line for the final corner it will be. It'll have to be a late apex and a run on towards the front straight, but it's not really happened, and now Richards is very close to his teammate.
Yeah, right up the exhaust pipes. And the thing is, they've just got to play it nice and clean. Richards up the inside, so Wilson effectively lets him through. The first rule of racing is never take out your teammate. Can have a look back at a replay now. This is Thomas O'Leary, and I think this is where he had the drama just a few moments ago. Yep, that was the touch, and it nearly sent that car into one of the other Richards & Co racing vehicles, but the number 59 DMA Racing Honda Civic is back on the track and is currently running 17th position. Callum Wilson now back up into 10th place and is chasing down again Scott Mitchell-Marm. We've got 10 laps to go of what has been a very exciting 2.5 races so far, but there's still half of this one to play out, Ewan.
Still a long way to go just yet in this race, not so much for the leading battles, but for those further behind, for those that matter in the championship. There are some important moments coming up here. Herlock looking for a move on London now as well. He might be able to catch up to the likes of Cal and maybe Munro before the end of this race and gain a few more points on Matt Richards, because so far today he has gained a few and will slice that championship margin down to roughly 30 points I think at the moment, but would like a few more points, as Callum Wilson would as well. He's down the inside of Mitchell Marm, and that's close between them. Over the grass goes Mitchell Marm, who still have the inside for the final turn. He can't quite execute, and now Matt Richards is going to try and go through as well.
Round the outside, more to the point, because these BMW 330e M Sports definitely have some pace. Daniel Herlock looking up the inside of Jack London through into Paddock Hill Bend. Herlock slides again, touches the curb with the right rear wheel. Matt Richards gets through on Scott Mitchell-Marm, so does Callum Cripps. So all three of the Richards & Co Racing BMW 330e M Sports now occupying the final 3 positions in the top 11. Scott Mitchell-Marm so far this season, just checking to see where he is, he's only had points finishes so far. Snetterton race 3, so he hasn't competed at Donington National, Thruxton or Oulton Park, so this is his second full meeting. Herlock again applying the pressure to Jack London. Jack London is not budging, he's giving no quarter whatsoever. Is the Calamity Motorsport number 36 Ford Focus as they head back through into Paddock Hill Bend, a little bit more controlled and measured, even though he touches the gravel on the left hand side of the circuit. Going up the hill, Herlock gives a little bit of a paint swap with London going through into Druids, but London still holds his ground and stays in 6th.
Does well to do so as well. It's not easy when Herlock closes in on you so quickly like that. It's very easy to be the victim of an easy pass, but London making sure that that's not the case on this occasion. Herlock will have to work a little bit harder than that for this move. Through the final corner, slides his way around, beautifully controlled. He's in a good run though. It's pretty decent. He'll be close on the way up towards turn 1, although not as close as Callum Wilson is to Ross McGregor there for 8th place. McGregor will dive to the inside and hold on to that position.
Yeah, this could also allow Ross McGregor and Callum Wilson to try and get through, as London still holds his ground. Herlock gets a bit twitchy coming out of Druids, nearly opens the door well and truly for Ross McGregor to get through, who's got Callum Wilson right up his exhaust pipes, just a little bit further back. Tobias Blumschein and Ben Willis battling over 13th position as they make their way through the exit of Graham Hill Bend, as the Honda just in front of them, which was Phil Garside, just kicks up the dust. Herlock still trying to put that pressure down onto Jack London, but he is not budging at all for one iota. Rich as Wilson right in the wheel tracks, right on the coattails of Rocket Sim Sports Ross McGregor, hurtling his way into Paddock Hill Bend. Callum Wilson again gets the over-under. He gets the better run coming out of the corner, but still McGregor able to carry the momentum through Paddock Hill Bend in that front-wheel drive Toyota Corolla was mightily impressive to witness.
And this has been an impressive fight now going on for quite some time. This has been where the action has been, the excitement has been in this third and final race of the evening. Jack London is creating the last part of it now in the final quarter of this race. by holding off Daniel Hurlock. We've got McGregor, Wilson, Richards and Cripps all here as well. After some of those further behind have brought onto this group. London under supreme pressure from Hurlock, who still can't find his way through.
Yeah, it's like the immovable force versus the unstoppable objects at the moment. And that unstoppable object is Jack London. It just seems that no matter what Daniel Hurlock does, he has been unable to try and get past Jack London. But again, the door is wide open for Ross McGregor, but he's not close enough to facilitate that. At the back of this 6-car train is Matt Richards. So now it really has started upping the ante, so to speak, because Matt Richards now is ahead of Callum Wilson, so he's going to be leading the Richards & Co Racing Brigade to try and close in on those in front. Jack London still holding on for dear life, as we are now going to be heading on to 3 laps to go. Very, very shortly. We've got 4 laps to go, including this one. So Ryan Elliott has a lead over Lewis Redshaw, who's on course, by my reckoning. Lewis Redshaw, I think this will be his best result of the season so far, in second position. Stephen Haley running out the top 3. Haley's not been on the podium once this season. Monroe has. He's had a win and 3 third places. Ryan Elliott looks to be another driver to pick up 2 wins, because he did win at Thruxton round 2 before an unfortunate DNF for him, as Ross McGregor now has Matt Richards right with him right now as they are trying to get through out of Clark Curve. Will the BMW have the better traction out of the corner, as Hurlock again tries to put the frighteners onto London? 3 laps to go and it's still all undecided.
Is an exchange of places on that last lap there between Richards and Wilson. Just wonder whether earlier in the race Richards sort of sent Wilson on his way, as if to say, try and get as many places as you can here in this one. But since Wilson has only been able to get 1 place ahead of Richards, then might as well reverse them and try and get Richards ahead of McGregor at the end here to reduce the advantage that Hurlock is gaining from this event. At the moment, it doesn't look like Richards is going to beat his championship rival in this particular round, but he is going to reduce the damage as much as possible, especially in this last race, as McGregor goes wide into the final turn. There's contact with Richards. Wilson would have been very, very close as well. They'll go on to the penultimate lap. In the end, it's not a good exit for Richards at all, and he will not be able to get anywhere near this move.
Yeah, Hurlock was very twitchy coming out of Clark Curve in his own right, because that Infiniti Q50 could have been left and into the gravel off Clark Curve very, very quickly had he not gathered it all back up. As London still stays ahead of him at the moment. They were side by side. Hurlock was fractionally ahead for just literally a couple of thousandths of a second, if that, and still has to hold on to 7th position. But the way things are going, Ryan Elliott now flashing the back marker just up ahead of him. That's one of the TR Geeks Energy cars just in front. Might be either Morris or Johannes Leppit, but Ryan Elliott making his way through out of Paddock Hill Bend for the final time up towards Druids, and Matt Richards still trying to close on in. It's going to be, I think, not enough. There's going to be no cigar there for Matt Richards on this particular occasion, as the remainder of the top 11 head on to the final lap of the race.
So important battles here for the championship as Richards tries again down the inside of McGregor. I think he's going to run out of laps now, really, and so is Hurlock by the looks of it. London has defended really, really well for this 6th place with a few corners to go. Looks like he's going to hold on to that 6th place.
But it's Ryan Elliott picking up his 2nd win of the 2023 VMO TCUK Championship, powered by VCO here at race 3 at Brands Hatch. What a result for Lewis Redshaw. Stephen Haley, who ran at the podium 4th, it's going to go to Rocket Sim Sports' John Monroe. Dan Kell is going to take 5th. Jack London holds on for 6th position, pipping Daniel Hurlock by just over half a second at the line. Ross McGregor will be 8th ahead of Matt Richards. Callum Wilson completes the top 10 ahead of Callum Cripps. Ben Willis beats Tobias Blumschein for 12th position. Thomas O'Leary mounts a fight back to finish in 14th position, and rounding out the points-paying positions in this 3rd and final race here at Brands Hatch Indy, it is Phil Garside in the 888 Vapor Shield Racing. Cam Brewster completes the top 16, but 3 different winners from 3 different races. Ryan Elliott is the 3rd of our different race winners tonight, followed by after Matt Richards and Dan Kell. Lewis Redshaw from Drake Racing takes a well-deserved second position. Stephen Haley, John Monroe, Dan Kell, Jack London, Daniel Hurlock, Ross McGregor, Matt Richards and Callum Wilson complete the top 10 after what was an exciting, enthralling, chess-like game of touring car action here at Brands Hatch Indy to complete our third and final race of the evening. I mean, you said it. You were hoping for 3 different winners from 3 different races. And by golly, did we get it?
He certainly did. And in the end, it wasn't really in any doubt for Ryan Elliott. He got that pole position, got his head down, and immediately got away from the rest. That's all he needed to do, really. Then hold the gap from further behind, and he managed to do that with flying colours in the end. So 3 different winners in 3 different races. Can't ask for more than that. Great action further behind as well, as the 2 championship leaders did go toe-to-toe on 1 or 2 occasions. Over the course of the night, though, I think Matt Richards' championship advantage could come down below 30 points at the end of tonight's racing. Thomas O'Leary, with that incident at the end there, may have dropped a few further points back, as well as the others. I think it is becoming an increasingly 2-horse race as we head into the final half of this season.
Yep, so there you see the remainder of the finishing order here at Brands Hatch Indy for the conclusion of round 5 of the VMO TCUK Championship powered by VCO. As always, a big thank you to Pixelate, a big thank you to our man from SimSport Solutions behind the scenes on the cameras, big thank you to Mike Yao. So obviously with the fact that Brands Hatch was meant to be round 2, it became the halfway point of the season. Folks, when can you next catch up with VMO TCUK action? Well, what we will have is that in 2 weeks' time, we will head up to Yorkshire to Croft, then followed by Knockhill on the 30th of August, Donington Park Grand Prix Circuit on the 13th of September, Silverstone National will host the penultimate 3 races of the season, and then it goes to the traditional way of Brands Hatch Grand Prix on the 11th of October this year with a revised calendar. Well, we have got a couple of drivers that I think might be worth interviewing. Let's bring in the Rocket SimSport duo of John Monroe and Tobias Blumschein, because John's had a very, very up and down race evening. John, good evening, buddy. How are you, mate? Long time no speak.
Good evening. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I've probably just had one of the most enjoyable race nights of the season. So, although it could have been a bit better, especially in race 1, kind of got wiped out. Nothing to do with me, but other than that, it was really, really enjoyable, and I had a lot of great battles tonight. So actually, I'm doing very well, Alex. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Still trying to get that second win of the season. Of course, Snetterton round 3. You managed to get a win there. You've also had 3 third places, but still a very, very consistent, despite race 1 race evening, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, last season I think I won 4 or 5 races, but it was because I was doing so badly in the championship. I kept going into race 1 with no weight, so that's kind of why I was getting poles and wins. This season I'm kind of been punished by my own point scoring, so yeah, it's been more consistent. I've managed to get myself up to the top. Well, most of the season been in the top 3 in the standings, which has meant lots of weight in race 1. But for the whole season we've really been struggling with the car. The setup's just not been right. We've been getting a lot of oversteer, unstable and braking. But Ross did a lot of good work on it this week. And tonight the car was completely transformed. We're still not quite on the pace, but even after that first race where unfortunately I got caught out in someone else's incident, ended up with damage and down the back, and I had a brake issue, so it didn't go well. But from that point onwards we were able to charge through the field each race and put on some nice moves, and yeah, decent points in the end, a 4th and an 8th. It's not a podium, it's not a win, but I'm actually feeling pretty good because yeah, there were some really enjoyable battles out there.
I think Ross and Tobias also had their fair share of battles over the course of the race evening, didn't they? I mean, Tobias didn't have a great race 1, but he's getting there. He's moving up the order, and this was from a guy that we saw as an entrant from last season. How's it been working with Mr. Blumschein so far?
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, the reason Toby's race 1 didn't go well is because he started on wets. Because we were he was looking at the forecast and he was last in the grid anyway. We thought, well, there's nothing to lose. We'll put poor Toby on wets. We'll make him the sacrificial lamb. And he did a good job. tonight by the sounds of it as well. He was feeling a bit better with the car, but no, he's been good. And he's not used to front wheel drive and not used to touring cars, so he's a good R Factor 2 driver, especially in GTs and endurance. But touring car thing's very much alien to him, so he's been coming on really nicely and he's been enjoying himself. Got caught up in a few incidents, but yeah, having fun. And then tonight Ross was I'd say back to where we can see him towards the front. I know he was driving that train in race 2. I could see him holding up everyone, and I was very much enjoying that as well. So yeah, no, it's all good. We're not taking things too seriously this year. We're having a bit of fun, not doing too much testing, and it's probably costing us a little bit in terms of setup development, but we're all enjoying it. So yeah, it's been good.
Well, I mean, considering the amount of work that you and Ross do anyway in your full-time jobs, which I know what it is, so it's always a very, when you're deeply engrossed within full-time employment within the sim racing sphere, but also to enjoy this as a recreation, it's a good way to blow off some steam, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, and that's the thing. Like, I don't do any of the serious sim racing anymore, like I used to. I just don't have the time really and the energy, because we obviously do a lot of it through the day, and being able to just race into something like this with your mates is just great fun. And there's so many drivers throughout the grid, like Matt and Callum and all sorts that we've raced with for years. So it's always fun. It's always really clean and respectful within reason. There's still going to be incidents there, but yeah, it's just nice, as you say, to blow off some steam in the evenings, and yeah, just good fun to go into a race not really caring about anything other than having a good time. And yeah, we've all been thoroughly enjoying it. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss a couple of rounds towards the end of the season, so championship wise it's kind of we're going to have to ignore that for now, but yeah, hopefully we'll be able to pick up some good results at Knockhill and the rest.
Brilliant. All right, thanks a lot, John. Have a good one, and nice work tonight, mate.
Thanks guys, cheers.
So big thank you there to John Monroe. Ewan, is there anyone that you'd like to speak to in particular that's waiting for interviews possibly?
Shall we chat to a race winner from someone who won a race? I know that doesn't narrow it down massively, does it? Because we had 3 different ones. So, but shall we bring a race 1 winner, Dan? I'm slightly scared we're going to interrupt a conversation, and you don't know what they're going to say when they get it. But we'll just go for it, shall we? Bring in Dan Kell now. Dan, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Race 1 win here today for you. How was your evening overall, though?
Again, it's a common theme at the moment, because obviously I'm not able to do every round at the moment due to work, so I'm coming in sort of into quali with not much weight on, so I can stick it up there in quali. And I end up having quite a boring night of just sort of driving round. Race 1, sort of driving around, hopefully normally doing well. Race 2, I'm driving around again because I'm getting overtaken by everybody. And then race 3, the reverse grid's kind of been going in my favour at the moment, where I'm starting a little bit high up. And yeah, it's overall it was really boring, but I'm not going to complain, because first, 4th, 5th, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, good results, and possibly the best point score of anyone actually over the course of the night, although I'm not entirely sure. How difficult is it though for you to kind of jump around as much as you do? I know that you've been racing this type of racing for a very long time now, and so maybe things aren't it's too difficult to get used to for you, but when you're jumping around like this, you're missing around here and there. Is it difficult to step back in again and get back involved, or is it easy because you've got basically no weight on the car?
Yeah, I think it depends really. It depends how many sort of rounds I miss. I think I've done it before where, like, if I take like 4 weeks off, like kind of at the moment, if I'm not doing this, I'm not really sim racing. So I think if you take 3 or 4 weeks off, it can definitely take a little bit of time to get back into it. But again, I've probably been driving like touring cars on RF2 now for, it's probably my 8th or 9th season, or like year. So it doesn't take long, because even though the physics have changed over the years, fundamentally it is still a front-wheel drive touring car that I've always driven. So it kind of, it doesn't take too long, but I just make sure I practice enough, because for me, I don't like not coming into something where I know I can be a lot faster than I should be. So just make sure I put some decent practice in, and then, it normally goes okay.
And in terms of the remainder of the season, we've still got the second half coming up. What's the future look like for you in this series? Do you know how much you'll be able to do over the course of the remainder of the season, or is that going to be a bit of a mystery as you go along?
To be honest, I was actually looking at it today, actually, because it originally it was going to be a little bit worse, and I might only be able to do like 2 more rounds. But at the moment, it's looking like I can do the next 3 rounds. Then I might be able to sneak a race 3 in at Donington. then I can do the second to last round, and I cannot definitely do the final round. So it's actually looking pretty positive that I can probably do at least 4 rounds, maybe 4.5. So I'm quite looking forward to it, really. I should be able to. I want to try and make a push for that sort of top 5 in the championship. I think that's my target.
It's certainly possible after tonight. Dan, congratulations on a successful evening, largely, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next round.
Cheers, thank you.
Thanks very much, Dan Kell there, with possibly the best points haul of anyone, Alex, although I haven't done the maths. It's first, 4th and 5th is a very good score from tonight.
Yes, indeed. Let's bring in our race 2 winner, and who, by our calculations, is still the championship leader. Let's bring in the one and only Mr. Matt Richards into the commentary box. Matt, good evening. It's been a tale of 2 halves tonight. Race 2 winner, obviously, as soon as all that ballast was sort of like taken away from the BMW, but still to be within sort of quite close to the competition, even though it was quite a few trains, let's be honest, over the course of races 1 and 3 for you. But still, race 2, we knew for the fact you come siding your way through the field. Just talk to us about your evening.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough one, to be honest. There's something that we're missing in the setup. We're scratching our heads a little bit because there's things that Infinity is doing around the track that is blowing our minds, to be completely honest. So the results are good, but we're not happy with where we are with the car. We do need to be in a better place. I mean, race 2 kind of worked. I was hoping it would be dry to take advantage of the softs for race 1 and 2, which worked out. But yeah, just kind of struggled here a little bit, to be honest.
We did see a couple of times when the BMW was not exactly fully compliant, but a few times when we saw you going a little bit sideways going through Paddock Hill Bend, which is not the easiest thing to try and correct in the best of times, especially in a touring car.
Yeah, there was a few points where it was getting a bit handsy. Just trying to, with me and the 2 Callums were pushing the car so hard, just trying to match what Herlock's doing in that Infinity, and there's bits that are clicking and working, but there's definitely something that we haven't found yet, and the car just doesn't quite have that drivability that we'd like it to have.
And thoughts ahead of going to Croft in a couple of weeks' time for round 6? Is that going to be a circuit that's going to favour the BMW a little bit more, in your honest opinion?
Yeah, it does. It does tend to help the rear-wheel drive cars a little bit, but we're gonna need to have a bit of a sweat on, because it is a very setup-heavy track, and yeah, we're definitely behind.
Well, Matt, congratulations on your 4th win in race 2 tonight, and good luck in a couple of weeks' time at Croft.
Cheers.
Well, Ewan, I think I'll leave the last one interview to yourself. I think we need to get our last race winner in of the evening, don't we, before we conclude things tonight?
Yeah, we certainly do. So let's have a quick chat with Ryan Elliott before we go. Ryan, welcome in as well. Good to have you with us. Race 3 win for you tonight. It was obviously the reverse grid race, and you got a bit of a gap very, very early on. What was final race like from your perspective?
Okay. It's like the least satisfying win I've ever had in my life, to be honest. Like, I just had a really terrible round, and I kind of picked the race 3 for the soft, expecting to have some ballast and use the soft tyre to boost me up a little bit, but it just ended up going. I'm mostly happy to win, but like I just couldn't get hold of the car today. I've done loads of wet testing and struggled to bring it back to a dry driving style, and I've had to make some changes with my wheel as well, because if I hit a curb too hard, it kills the power of my wheel, so I've had to turn my force feedback right down, and just got absolutely nothing going through the steering wheel. But you probably even saw I went off into the gravel, like in the lead, like 3 times in that last race, so really pretty poor, but at least the single lap pace was there, like fastest lap of the meeting.
Well, exactly, and you can't be too well. You do sound disappointed with a race win, but I was going to say you can't be too disappointed with a race win. So fair enough. Just how difficult though is it to select that tyre compound? You mentioned there that maybe you'd if you were to do it again, then maybe you'd use the softer tyre in a different place. Obviously, this format is quite well known now. It's been around it's not exactly a new idea, but even at this stage, how difficult is it to select that tyre going in? Because it's not like you can see what happens in race one and then maybe decide a bit later on. You've got to decide right from the very start. Just how difficult is that to do right from the very start of each round, even if you may be experienced in picking that now?
Well, when you got a bit of weather chucked in there as well, it doesn't make it easy. So I kind of went race 3 looking at the broadcast and expecting there to be rain for like race 1, it to like dry out a bit in race 2, and then be on the softer tyre. Like I was expecting to have a good race 1 and have loads of weight, go into race 2, drop it, being on the slower tyre and having a lot of ballast, and then race 3 when it dried up having my soft tyre at a bit less weight. But it just didn't go to plan. Like you can guess, but it took one tap of a brake pedal that threw me off from the person ahead and ruined my entire evening's plan. So it's just guesswork really, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And this time it didn't work. But if you look at Thruxton, where we only had the hard tyre, it was a bit dominant from me and my teammates. So it's good that we have the option tyre to spice it up a little bit.
Absolutely. Ryan, congratulations on winning the final race here this evening at Brands Hatch, and we look forward to seeing you again in the coming rounds.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Their race 3 winner here from tonight, and possibly the most disappointed race winner I've ever spoken to.
Yeah, hearing that, there was definitely a big sign of disappointment there from Ryan, but still, a win is the win, as you rightly said, nevertheless. You, and final thoughts before we close things out tonight here?
I've enjoyed it once again seeing touring car racing once again for the first time in a little while. It's just so exciting, and can even make a circuit like Brands Hatch Indy seem a lot more exciting than it is, because on your own it's not the best circuit in the world, I'll be honest. But to race around here, it's fantastic. To race around here in touring cars, it's even better, and we've proved that tonight. A fantastic meeting of 3 rounds, and it's been very enjoyable. The championship situation between those top 2 just bubbling up even further as well, heading into the second half of this season.
Yep, 2 weeks' time, the second half of the VMO TCUK Championship, powered by VCO, gets underway at Croft in North Yorkshire. Big thank you to Mike Yao from SimSport Solutions for the camera work. Big thank you to you and O'Leary joining myself, Alex Goldschmidt, in the commentary box. Thank you very much for watching. See you in a couple of weeks, folks. Good night.